Did you know that your daily routine can affect your health? Did you also know that what you believe in can affect your health? Did you also know that what goes on in your environment can affect your health? That's why in today's lecture video, I'm going to be teaching you about the determinants of health. Don't go anywhere. Hi, welcome to my channel. I'm Mrs. Ezinye and I'm a lecturer who is passionate about helping students succeed in university. I do that by offering educational tips and tutorials via my YouTube channel and my page on Instagram. So if you haven't subscribed yet, go ahead and click that subscribe button, go to your settings and turn off notification for this channel if you want to receive new updates on this channel. Also go to my Instagram page and follow me there for more educational tips. Now let's head on to today's lecture video. So if you're just joining us on this channel, this is one of my lecture video for my lecture series on the course Psychological Basis for Health, Behavior and Change Process. So if you haven't watched lecture 1 and lecture 2, go ahead and look at the description box below. You will see the links to each of them. Now this is the third lecture for this course, Psychological Basis for Health, Behavior and Change Process. In today's video, I'll be lecturing on the determinants of health. So let's head over to the lecture note and continue from there. Just a sec. Make sure you're not watching the wrong lecture video. Check the description box below and read before you watch any of my videos. Each of my lecture series have a colored theme. Okay, so for this one, Psychological Basis for Health, Behavior and Change Process, the color I'm using is red. Okay, for other ones they have their own individual colors. Now let's head over to the lecture note. Okay, so we are going to be looking at the determinants of health. The determinants of health. Okay, so the context of people's lives determines their health, and so blaming individuals for having poor health or crediting them for good health is inappropriate. Okay, so individuals are unlikely to be able to directly control many of the determinants of health. You can't just necessarily blame someone that falls ill that is their fault for that particular sickness. Sometimes they cannot control the factors that actually affect or led to that illness. So these determinants or things that make people healthy or not include: number one, the income and social status of that person. The higher the income and social status are linked to better health. Okay, higher income and social status are linked to better health. You can't compare me now to Jennifer Lopez. I hope you know that she is 50, above 50, and she even looks younger than me, right? Because of course, because she's wealthier than me and so can afford more access or better access to healthcare and can pay for more expensive treatments than me. Okay, this is a practical example. The greater the gap between the richest and the poorest people, the greater the differences in health. Now I just compared myself to J.Lo. Now, can you compare someone that is living in the rural area to J.Lo? Yes, you can see that that gap has just widened. Okay, so the income and social status of a person actually affects their health. The next one is education. Low education levels are linked with poor health, more stress and lower self-confidence. Okay, the more educated you are, the more opportunity you can be able to have better health compared to someone with lower education. Okay, next one is your physical environment. Safe water and clean air, and natural environments such as the plants, weather or climate change, built environments such as buildings or transportation, healthy workplaces, schools, recreational settings, neighborhoods, exposure to toxic substances and all the rest all contribute to good health. Okay, some of them you can actually control, like having safe water. Okay, you can go ahead and purify that water, but some people are not able to control such things like your natural environment, like climate change. You can hardly control that as an individual. So the next one we'll be looking at is employment and working conditions. People in employment are healthier than people who are unemployed. Of course, you know that this is also linked to income, right? So if someone is employed working in a place, that person is able to earn something compared to someone who doesn't have any employment, particularly those who have more control over their working conditions. Okay, so for example, some people have flexible employment roles they play in the organization. Some you can make it part-time, full-time, or you can even go on maternity leave, like I am on maternity leave, okay, to take care of my baby and myself to get better. But there are some people who cannot control such working conditions. Next is social support networks. Greater support from family, friends, and communities is linked to better health. Can you compare someone who has a lot of people surrounding them, supporting them, family and friends, compared to someone who is lonely? Definitely not. Next is culture. The customs and traditions and beliefs of the family and community also affect our health. Okay, what you believe in can actually affect your health. Next one is biology and genetics. Inheritance plays a part in determining our lifespan, healthiness, and the likelihood of developing certain illnesses. Some biological and genetic factors affect specific populations more than others. Yes, for example, the white people, the way certain things affect them is different from how it affects black people. For example, older adults are biologically prone to being in poorer health than adolescents due to their physical and cognitive effects of aging. So as we age, your body kind of shuts down. So compare, if you notice, the energy a young person displays, not the same kind of energy an older person displays. And you see that when it comes to football and certain athletic games, you can see that old people are not allowed to participate in sports. In fact, some of them even put their target of from 40 and above, you can't participate in certain sports. Sickle cell disease is another common example of a genetic determinant of health. You see people that have sickle cell, which is a condition that people inherit when both parents carry the gene for sickle cell SS. The gene is most common in people with ancestors from West African countries. You can see that Mediterranean countries, South or Central American countries, Caribbean islands, India and Saudi Arabia. Okay, so people that have sickle cell disease are likely to, get certain illness in certain diseases, and compared to someone who doesn't have that condition. So next is our personal behavior and coping skills. Balanced eating, our eating habits, keeping active through exercise, physical activity, smoking, hand washing, and the rest, and how we deal with life stress also affects our health. Okay, how do you cope when you lose a loved one? How do we cope when we don't do well academically? All these can affect our health. Health services, the access and the actual use of these services, okay, that prevent and treat disease, and the quality of health services that we get actually influence our health. Can you imagine for example now, the difference between giving birth in a public hospital compared to giving birth in a private hospital? The difference is there. Okay, the quality of health that you will receive in a private hospital, especially when it comes to healthcare, is quite different from what you receive in a public hospital. And in that public hospital, they also have general ward and they have private ward. Okay, so you can see these disparities in health. Health services. Lack of access or limited access to health services greatly impacts an individual's health status. Some people cannot access, for example, giving birth in a hospital or clinic. They actually give birth at home. Why? Because the distance to the clinic is quite far. Barriers to accessing health services include lack of availability, high cost, lack of insurance coverage, limited language access. Okay, when such services are not available in your area, to get where it's available can be quite expensive when you are looking at the cost of accessing health services. Last, gender. Men and women suffer from different types of diseases at different ages. For example, women are more prone to having breast cancer than men, of course. So, models of health. Let us look at the models of health, which are the conceptual frameworks, that the ways of thinking about health. We have two models of health promotion, or two viewpoints about health, which are basically considered in this course, psychological basis for health behavior and change process, okay, in health psychology. And they include: one, the biomedical model of health, and two, the biopsychosocial model of health. So we're looking at the first one, which is the biomedical model. Okay, so the biomedical model, or medical model, or you can say biomechanical model of health, is a scientific measure of health and regards disease as the human body having a breakdown due to a biological reason. Now, note the word biological. Okay, the patient is seen as a body that is sick and can be handled, explored, and treated independently from their mind and other external considerations. The treatment, therefore, will be from medical professionals such as doctors, nurses, medical lab practitioners, with appropriate knowledge, and must take place in an environment where medical technology exists. For example, the hospital, a clinic, a maternity clinic, for example. Then it represents illness as biological problems with biological solutions. Straightforward. Biological problem, biological solution. Wow. That is, only physical self is affected and must be treated. It is based on molecular biology, which looks at macromolecules such as protein and the rest, and it is most successful against infectious agents. It focuses on the cure rather than the prevention. So immediately someone presents with an illness, they just check for the they check what causes the illness and then give a solution to the cause of that illness. Okay, so what are the components of the biomedical model of health? Number one, it is associated with the diagnosis, finding what causes it, the cure, and the treatment of disease. Emphasis is more on the diagnosis and treatment of the individual, separating their lifestyle conditions from the cause of the disease. They actually look at the components, like the organism which is actually causing the disease. This model concentrates on the disease, illness, disability, and attempts to cure or return the physical health of the person back to the pre-illness state before the person became ill. Reasons for illness are not at the center of this model of health. Remember, what's at the center is the diagnosis and treatment of the illness. So it receives majority of government healthcare funding. It has two aspects: diagnosis and intervention. Diagnosis and intervention, that is the treatment aspect of it. And examples of these models include x-rays, scans, blood tests, ultrasounds, and mammograms. So next is, what are the pros of this biomedical model? Number one, it creates advances in technology and research. Without this model, there will be little known about how to treat and diagnose illnesses. Okay, so if we are not able to know what is causing the illness, then how are we going to treat that illness? Many common problems can be effectively treated through this model. Diseases that would otherwise develop and cause considerable illness or death can be stopped. Extends life expectancy, okay, and it also improves the quality of life, which can be successful in returning someone back to good health. Okay, the next one is the cons. Okay, so what are the limitations of this model? It relies only on professional health workers and technology, and is therefore costly. It's not everybody that can afford to see a medical doctor. For example, here in Nigeria, professionals with specialist knowledge, okay, needed are expensive to train. Number one. To invite, technology, equipment, and technological developments are also expensive. Recently, I even read about a fetus in Israel, that the mother was pregnant with a fetus, and that fetus was also having another fetus inside of it. How were they able to, when they gave birth to the baby over there in Israel, they were able to carry out a surgery to remove that fetus, and it was successful? How many places, countries can afford that type of service? Okay, so it's really can really be expensive, doesn't promote good health, narrow view of health, just looking at the diagnosis and treatment of the illness instead of other factors that causes it, as we will see in the next model. Doesn't encourage people to live healthy lives, as they are treated to fix the problem as they arise. The focus is on the condition and not on what the factors that cause the condition to occur. Not every condition can be treated. You know that there are certain conditions that cannot be treated. For example, HIV doesn't have a cure. Okay, certain cancers, for example, can be treated, but the treatment is not always successful. People are still dying from certain types of cancer. Affordability, it is not always affordable. Okay, so not all countries can afford the medical technologies and resources that are part of the biomedical model of health, an important factor contributing to the differences experienced in health status. I've just given you an example of the difference between Israel and Nigeria. You have people going abroad to treat certain type of illnesses that they cannot treat right here in our country. So the next model is the biopsychosocial model. I love this model, okay, because public health is operating on this model. It was originally advanced by George L. Engel in the year 1977. It views diseases and health as the product of the physiological, psychological, and social-cultural variables. You can see that not just the physiological aspect like the former model. This viewpoint stands in contrast to the biomedical model, in which disease is viewed in terms of deviation from normal biological functioning, and where the experience and etiology of illnesses are understood solely in terms of biological factors such as genetic predispositions or physiological dysfunction. Okay, that is for the biomedical model. Now, Angel argued that this other model, the biopsychosocial model, the biomedical model was too narrowly focused on just, the diagnosis and the treatment, and that greater emphasis needs to be placed on the biopsychosocial model, biopsychosocial factors. It assumes that illness or injury has biological, psychological, and sociocultural components attached to it. Therefore, management should take all factors into account and not just the physiological aspects. Okay, so let us look at this diagram. We have the biology presenting the bio aspect, we have the psychology presenting the psycho aspect, and we have the social context, okay, of understanding health. Now, under biology, we have the gender, the physical illness, the disability, the immune function, the stress reactivity, the medication effects. Now, looking at the psychological factors, we have learning, attitudes, personalities, behavior, coping skills, and past trauma. Then we have the social context of health, social support, the family background, the beliefs, the education, the economic status. All these affects the health, which is in the middle. You can see that it encompasses these factors. Okay, so what are the components of the biopsychosocial model? Number one, it addresses the broader determinants of health. Remember, we looked at determinants of health in the beginning, and you can see that all this is under the biopsychosocial model. It focuses on the biological, psychological, and social variables that affect health individually or intertwine with to affect health. It is based on the understanding that in order for health gains to occur, the social, economic, lifestyle, behavioral, and environmental determinants must be addressed. The biopsychosocial approach emphasizes meeting the behavioral health needs and promoting the biopsychosocial functioning of the general public. It involves providing intervention treatment for the behavioral health problems that individuals have already developed. Okay, individuals already have certain behaviors they have already displayed, so the problems associated with this behavior, this model looks at it, but it also requires a preventive and public health perspective. Public health, right? Us, both for those who could be prevented from developing problems arising from this behavior, as well as those who are showing early signs of developing such problems. It takes into account the biopsychosocial factors during the examination of the etiology and the maintenance of illness. So when it comes into checking what is actually causing this illness, it doesn't just check the physiological factor now. It goes ahead to check the behavioral, the social factors. It recommends that a holistic lens, okay, be used when assessing a patient. Now, you look at the family's perception of medical symptoms and history, the psychological symptoms and history, the perception of the role of the spirituality and religious beliefs, and the experience of the current illness or disease to the patient and their family members. You see, it looks at everything as a whole. Now, lifestyle factors, we have, for example, diet, exercise, sleep, stressors and stress management strategies, psychosocial context, we have family constellation, medical history, recent major life events, perceived strengths, job and academic activities, functional impairment, what a patient can or cannot do, and cultural factors like meaning of illness, preferred treatment approaches, involvement of the elders and religious leaders are also important factors to review, because these factors, these determinants affect our health. So it also focuses on policies and health promotion together with education. Okay, unlike the biomedical approach, which doesn't really affect the policy, this model affects the policy and also involves intersectoral collaboration. Unlike the biomedical model, which just involves professionals, clinical professionals, this model goes ahead to incorporate others. Okay, the cultural aspect, of course, when it comes to food, you incorporate the agricultural sector as well. It empowers individuals and communities with health knowledge, means they have the ability to make positive decisions, because now you're looking at what affects their health, the environment, their cultural beliefs and all that, so that they can make informed decisions about their health and participate in healthy behaviors. Now, what are the pros of this biopsychosocial model? Number one, it acknowledges that health is not just a measure of one dimension, the physiological aspect. It promotes meeting the behavioral and the social needs of the individual and not just the physical needs. The third one is that it encourages intersectoral collaboration by making healthcare not only the business of healthcare providers. It helps improve and promote better policies, encourages health promotion and education, as we discussed before, but it has limitations. Okay, just like the biomedical has its own limitations. Number one, there is no clear line drawn to the extent of the psychological, biological and social factors considered. They are usually intertwined, and it makes the process of discovering the actual cause of illness ambiguous, vague and unclear. Okay, so it has its own limitation. That is why it goes hand in hand to use both models. So let us go ahead to see the overview of the psychological and the behavioral factors to health. Number one, the psychological factors are variables stemming from an individual's thoughts, feelings, attitudes, has to do with the mind. The psychological variables play a major role in diseases. They can affect physical conditions directly or indirectly. The next one is that direct factors lead to a physical complication just because you have the psychological issue. Okay, for example, someone that has depression, that is a direct factor of not sleeping well, which is insomnia. Just having depression can actually lead to you not sleeping well, which is insomnia. So that is a direct factor. Now the indirect factors lead to physical complication because of the way the psychological issues impact our behaviors. For example, anxiety can be an indirect factor for lung cancer, right? Yes, it's weird, but when you look at it, you can see that people who feel anxious often smoke, okay, because you are feeling, you are feeling anxious, so you need to calm your nerves down, and some people go ahead to smoke or drink, for example, to relieve their anxiety. And you know that smoking is a direct factor that leads to cancer. So you can see that anxiety leads to smoking, and smoking which leads to cancer. You can see that anxiety is a indirect factor that leads to cancer, lung cancer. This can be seen in the case of a person who is suffering from a heartbreak as well, or has been hurt by a loved one, or an individual who is angry with a friend. So it can lead to heart problems. Now, examples of psychological factors, as we have seen before, we have stress, we have depression, we have hopelessness, emotion, memory, motivation. All these are psychological factors. Then we have behavioral factors, which are variables that affect an individual's health as a result of the individual's manner of acting or lifestyle. Now, psychological has to do with the mind, the feelings, the thoughts, okay? Behavioral has to do with the way we act, our lifestyle. So by changing behaviors that affect our health, such as the way we eat, what we eat, when we sleep, and socializing, an individual can improve their health. Now, examples of these behavioral factors, we have risky alcohol consumption. People drink alcohol a lot. You are only meant to drink it in little bits, but people go ahead and consume a lot, okay? Tobacco use, poor dieting. Most people don't eat balanced meals, okay, which can lead to either obesity or malnutrition. Physical inactivity as well, sexual behavior, inappropriate sexual behavior can actually lead to HIV, okay? So stopping such can prevent that person from getting HIV. Drug intake, exposure to the sun, use of seatbelt or child car seat can also affect our health. These are behavioral factors that can affect our health, okay? So let's look at the biological and the social cultural variables to health. A biological factor is anything that affects the function and behavior of a living organism. These factors can be physical, physiological, chemical, neurological, or genetic, okay? Note that biological factors are the primary determinants of human behavior, and they are routinely examined when studying the causes of mental illness, okay? Biological variables are factors which directly have an impact on an individual's health as a result of biology and genetic characterization. The main biological factors implicated in mental illness are genetic, infection, brain defects or injury, prenatal damage when it occurs when the fetus is still in the stomach, and substance abuse. Due to the environmental factors which can influence the onset of mental illness, such as trauma, okay, childhood trauma. Maybe someone was sexually abused when they were a child, and can go ahead to affect the person's mental health even as the person grows up. Abuse or stress. A person genetically predisposed to a mental illness may or may not finally express the illness, okay? Some people have bipolar disorder in their genes. They may or may not express this illness or in their lineage. Okay, so next is the sociocultural variables, which are components within our society, within our culture, that affect the thoughts and feelings and behaviors of an individual. They are customs, lifestyle, and values that characterize a society. Such factors include what? Number one, religion. Oh my God, the way our religious beliefs affect us goes a long way. Some people are so focused on faith, on having faith to cure an illness, when they can simply go and drink a drug that will cure that illness. So you can see that religion can affect our health. We have attitudes, the way people believe that drinking, just staying on natural herbs can actually prevent them from falling ill, compared to people who actually run every time to drink drugs to cure that particular illness. Economic status, I've talked about it. The class, the language, education, law, concept of beauty. Okay, some people want to retain that slim fit. I've seen so many so many people who believe that being slim is beautiful compared to being fat. Okay, and so to retain that slim figure, they go ahead and don't eat certain foods that make them fat. Ethnicity, race, the way we eat in our country is different from the way other people eat in their own country. The culture and norms, employment, unemployment, and the rest. So that is all for this class. We have looked at the determinants of health. So finally, we have come to the end of today's lecture. I hope you understood everything on the determinants of health. If you didn't, don't worry, just leave your question in the comment section below and I'll try my best to answer it. If you want a faster response, you can send me your question on WhatsApp and I will answer it. Please don't forget to watch the lecture, the first and second lecture, before you watch the third lecture. Turn on post notification, going to your settings and clicking the notification there, and so that you can be notified of the next lecture. Okay, I think we have about 3 or 4 lectures remaining for this particular course on psychological basis for health behavior and change process. Remember, if you haven't subscribed, please do so, and also do your assignments that have been given on this course. This course is going to be very, very, very simple to pass, as long as you follow the instructions given and you read and revise. So thanks so much for watching and participating in this lecture. See you in my next lecture. Bye.